we decided to go across the country and find the most resilient entrepreneurs who strive to continue to succeed and disrupt in every industry that they are in. So welcome to the Disruptor Network.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast for another great episode. And I'm welcoming a friend today, Rich Sadiv. He's more than a friend. He's a mentor. He's a peer. He's somebody who I look to for inspiration. Rich is known around the world as the human crane. So, he's got a special talent in powerlifting for his whole life, and not just talking to people, but he's an international power champion who holds multiple world records, state records in the deadlift. He's also a highly, highly regarded strength and conditioning coach who's an owner of Parisi Speed School in Fairlawn, New Jersey. He's trained over 130 NFL draft picks for the combine, which is unbelievable. He's pioneered something called the Sadiv Set, which if you Google it right now, you'll go find an unbelievably hard workout program for deadlifting and makes you a lot stronger. As an owner of Parisi Speed School, he owns the #1 franchise in the country, and he's trained and helped countless youth athletes, amongst other things, amongst his charities with the Best Buddies program, and just an all-around good guy and an inspiration. And he's going to give you some of his routines today that have gotten him to this level, now 59 years old, still pushing the limits, still competing, still finishing ahead of people a third of his age. And he's going to give you all his routines that have gotten him to this point and what really fuels him every single day. So, Disruptors Network, welcome Rich Sadiv.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network. And we have a great guest today, a really, really close friend of mine. So I'm a little bit biased. Rich, I gave you an intro already, so everybody kind of knows who you are, but not really. So we're going to get into that. But welcome to the podcast.
Ralph, appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
So, you're someone that has been great for me in my life because you're someone who kind of makes me push to another levels that I know it's still possible because you're still kind of pushing the age requirements for things and restrictions that people have put on us and stuff like that. But can you just tell me, as I know you as like pretty much the most consistent person I've ever met, can you tell people what your daily routine looks like at this point?
Yeah, sure. It's obviously this works very well for me. So I'm not going to say after someone listens to this and they want to follow in my footsteps, if I'm brazen enough to say that, maybe this isn't for you. So every morning I get up at 3:00 in the morning. And so the first thing I have is a black cup of coffee. Then I shower. Then I sit with my thoughts for about an hour. I reflect upon what happened yesterday. I think about today, and I think about the future, and usually in anywhere from 1 to 3 to 5 year blocks. I do that every single morning. Then I'll read for about 15 to 20 minutes, usually something inspirational or something that's fact-finding. So I want to research a type of modality from recovery, exercise, then I'll do that. Then I head out the door. I usually have my first session in the morning at the facility at 5:45 or 5 o'clock, depending on clients. And I usually arrive, anywhere from a half an hour to 45 minutes early for that session. And after that, I do my sessions. I usually come back to the house, depending on the day, 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock. At that point, I have my first meal. So basically, I'm a time-restricted eater. I eat between the hours of 10 and 4. So I have a 6-hour eating window block. And during those 6 hours, I have 3 meals. Those 3 meals consist of usually 65 to 70 grams of protein per meal. So I'm looking to hit about 200 grams of protein and roughly about 2,500 calories. On days I train 5 days a week. I usually burn 34 to 3,500 calories. And the days I don't train, I usually burn about 2,400 calories. So I'm trying to not be in a deficit overall in calories. I'm trying to maintain a body weight of about 186, 187. This is, to me, it's my perfect body weight where I could run and I could still move some weight.
So, how precise you are. And just for everybody that's listening, everything he just said is exactly how precise Rich is. He's not somebody those numbers are exactly to that. So you're down to what, about 6 hours a day that you have a window for eating at this point?
That is correct. And I have 3 meals, and I'm almost 100% vegan, except for I have one non-vegan meal, which is cottage cheese. That's the only.
Yeah, I know that's your favorite.
Can't get away from it. Just can't get away from the cottage cheese. 2% for a friendship whipped.
What made you? Because I know you've only really changed over vegan probably in the last 3 or 4 years. What caused that change, and what have you seen results from that? Like, you obviously seen results for it. You wouldn't still be doing it if you did.
Yeah, correct. And it's funny. I really came to this conclusion. I had a really, I had a pretty affluent client, and they owned this huge ranch out in Colorado. So they would send me meat every quarter, just like as a gift. And I never tasted meat like that in my life. It came like the white wrapper, any kind of cut you would imagine. It would come in a cooler box delivered to my house. It was amazing. So I was getting that. They're sending me that meat for about 2 years, I would say. So once the client kind of moved on, I stopped getting the meat. It ruined me. I couldn't go back. That's just like a little side note, but looking into everything about who I am and how my body reacts to meat, I'm definitely more of a plant eater. I eat beans every day. So my 3 meals are this. They're based in this. My 3 major protein sources. It's the cottage cheese for one protein source, beans for another protein source, and lentils for another protein source. Wow. So around those 3 protein sources, then I'll put in my nuts, my berries, and anything else that goes along with a vegetable or fruit. So those are my 3 main protein sources. So I've gotten away from the meat.
Got it. Okay. I mean, that's, I've listened to, even though I know you so well, and it's been a long time since I know you at this point now, I listened to a bunch of your stuff over the last couple of days that I found on YouTube, and I watched a bunch of your videos, and I hear you talking about that. And, every single time I talk to you in person, and even when I listen to you speak, it kind of changes my perception on things. So, you made me re-examine and what I'm doing, the window I'm eating in, and I've cut back on meat a lot because I feel the same. I feel like the older I've gotten, the more sluggish it makes me. But I think I'm headed towards where you are at this point now, because I feel like there's a lot of validity to what you're saying.
Yeah, I think our goal as athletes, or even as people who have an active lifestyle, is try to reduce as much inflammation as possible.
Yep.
And for me personally, I think, except for the cottage cheese, I basically have no dairy. Kept away from the meat. And I really don't feel like I have, the only inflammation I have is good inflammation. It's post-exercise inflammation, as opposed to chronic inflammation that a 59-year-old, which I am, might have, especially the kind of training I do.
I was going to get to your age, and that's part of my next question. The last 40 years of your life the last 40 years essentially have been about competition. Somewhere between 35 and 40 years, you've been competing in something. Why do you still do it, and what drives you to kind of keep pushing your limits every single time? And a caveat to this is, I had Hunter McIntyre on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he keeps breaking world records. And I asked him, I was like, how do you keep coming home and deciding that you're going to try to be 2 seconds faster? And I'm curious to see how your answer compares to his.
A lot of the way my mind works is objective measurement. I love data. And I love measuring myself up against other people my age or my ability. And it really is, I love looking at data. And data really drives me, and especially at the highest level. So I prefer not to powerlift or deadlift anymore, but I hate to say this, I'm such a good deadlifter, it keeps on pulling me back into that field.
Yeah.
I look at those results almost daily just to see, hey, where I rank. Has anybody crept in front of me? I love historical numbers. I love looking at data, and that data really drives me. And that's why I've gotten into this High Rocks thing, and they got this thing right. It's a great form of exercise, but I just like all the data that surrounds it, and it can show you where you can make improvements. Even at 59, I'm still trying to strive for improvements.
And Rich, can you just give people? Rich just ran a High Rocks race this weekend. This past weekend, can you give everybody your results live there?
Yeah, we did. I did as a team, as a doubles. We did the 50 to 59 age bracket, and it was a really competitive race. It was the North American Open in Washington, D.C. At the race, we came in 4th. Overall, since they've been doing the event. We have the 45th fastest time ever. And getting back to the data, you can see the breakdown of every single event. Right now, we have the fastest sled pull ever, 6th fastest carry ever. We're top 50 in 5 of the events of the 8. Now, the one place we need to make an improvement, I don't come from a running background. I come from a strength background. So we ran the 8K portion in right under 40 minutes. That's the place. If we want to get to the elite level, we have to drop that down to about 35, 36.
And what do you think that equals as like a mile time?
Right now we're probably mid 6s. Like we're probably touching 7-minute mile pace.
Okay.
That's probably where we're at. And then it's basically, this is my biggest challenge. I have an emergency brake on these runs because I'm so cognizant of the next station.
Yeah.
I have to release that emergency brake. I have to understand how deep into the tank I can go and still hit the station, but I don't want to blow up. And
yeah,
I know there's more room on the table. I kind of learned that from you. We talk about like what you've learned from me. Say I got a lot out of the last time me and you trained together, understanding how to pace and how to run quietly.
Yeah.
How to run efficiently. I'm a neophyte when it comes to mid-distance running.
Yeah.
I'm a platform guy. I'm a guy who has deadlifted triple body weight in 4 different decades of my life. Like that's who I am. As I get into this world, I'm trying to learn more and more about myself and where I can go and where I can't go.
I mean, just the fact that you're running still a sub 7-minute mile, and you just really started running a couple of years ago. If it's even that much, maybe it's 2 years, Rich. But how long have you been running?
Yeah, I really got into the running like in the heart of the pandemic. That's when I started my journey into the run. And that's, my whole life has been spent on strength sports, track and field and powerlifting. That's basically, that's where I was most comfortable. And to a certain extent, I still am comfortable. It's funny. My wife went to the competition with me in DC. She goes, "Wow, I'm not used to not knowing you." Because she'll go to a powerlifting meet. It's kind of like, hey, there's a human brain.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, hey, there's some other guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that you've done this well. And, sled pushes and carries, you're an elite person in life in the world. Like I've seen you do it. And, it's funny because when I come and train with you personally, like if I can keep up with you, I leave the workout like thinking pretty strong about myself. And then sometimes I sit back and think about that. I'm like, Rich is 59. Like most 20-year-olds wouldn't even be in the race. Like, because I'm in a pretty high level of condition and I'm just trying to keep up with you at most things. And I'm just thinking what you would do to most people that are a 30 your age right now, and they would be in trouble training with you. So, it's unbelievable. And I hope I know you're documenting this, but I'm hoping at some point this is going to be a book on how to live life, because you really are pushing not just the limits of age, the limits of high performance is really what I feel like you're pushing.
Peter Attia says that you never want to marginalize the last, like say, decade or 2 of your life. That is accurate. Yeah. I want to live a long time. I have a lot to live for. And my oldest daughter just let me and my wife know that she's going to have a baby in July, so I'll be a grandfather.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So I have a lot to live for, and I don't want to just live. I want to live productively and healthy, doing the things that I want to do. That doesn't start off when you turn 60 or 70 or 80. That happens when you're 30, 40, 50. Yep. There's a lot of things. You keep yourself fit, so a lot of the long-term killers don't creep into your life. But the second thing really is, to me, is you develop strategies on how to live a long, productive, healthy life. So that's what I've developed. And now for me, not doing what I do now would be very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Life strategies.
I mean, I had this question written down. I'm gonna go to it now because you kind of mentioned it. If you could give 3 keys to people to as maybe 3 strategies to improve as a human as you've gotten older, what would they be?
Be comfortable in what you do. So like I said, I don't expect someone to get up 3 o'clock in the morning, just because I do it. Figure out what works for you from a position that you can spend alone time. you need to have some time during the course of the day where you're totally alone with your thoughts. That's where you develop your strategy. Every human has 4 endowments. First one is free will. Second one is consciousness, self-awareness, and creative imagination. So you have those 4 things. How you use them or how you develop them is usually time spent alone. Because you'll have 2 voices. You'll have the voice that's very positive and the voice that's very negative. You have to develop the ability to drown out the negative and amplify the positive. So that's the first thing. So you want to develop alone time to develop these 4 strategies. The next thing is surround yourself with like people. Because the last thing you need is the 2 things that I always hear. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? And why is it any concern that I'm doing these things? People tend to like, just because they don't do it or they don't understand it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, you're right.
So the next thing is surround yourself with basically people of like minds. And I think probably the most important thing, and you could probably vouch for me here, Ralph, is, I'll be married 35 years in August. Having a strong partner really is the key to success. And understanding if your partner is strong and has your best interest in mind, when they do tell you something, take it to heart. Yeah. I remember first, my wife, Nancy, would give me some constructive criticism. At first, it was kind of tough to take. Then when I would sit with my alone time, I would always come up with this conclusion. Yeah, she's right. Yeah, I got to stop doing that, or I have to start doing this.
We have very similar situations when it comes to that, as far as that of partners. And you told me a story once. I was going to tell you this. I meant to. I marked this to tell you next time I spoke to you. So you told me a story one time that I thought was hysterical. Now, as you guys heard in the intro, Rich is one of the most accomplished deadlifters, especially in his weight class of all time, especially for his age. Which means that he has very, very strong hands and strong grip strength. And you told me a story when your wife asked you to open a jar one day, and you're like, yeah, I think I could do it, based off of my background. And she didn't even get it. She just had she had no understanding that you had good grip strength, even though you probably have some of the best grip strength in the world to even open the jar. It was almost like marginalizing what you've done for your career.
Right.
Which I thought is hysterical. Go ahead.
Yeah, she at the time she said to me, I struggled. It was a jar of honey. I got it open. I go, wow, that was really close. I almost couldn't get that. She goes, but what do you mean? It's like, well, I have a really good grip. Just, what do you mean? Like, forget about it. But
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
It keeps you grounded.
But what she likes to say is this: you have enough people telling you how great you are and telling you yes all the time. Sometimes somebody's got to ground you back to reality.
Yeah, so we were having a conversation the other day, and I don't know how it started, but Beatrice turned around to me and said, "You're fast," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a pretty fast runner." And she's like, "I know you run good. I just didn't really." I was like, and then you feel like I get defensive. I'm like, you don't even know anybody that's 45 years old that can run as fast as I can. What?
Let's see how to fight.
But anyway, it was humorous, and I thought of you when that happened. But the other part of you and besides your competitive career and your family and what you've mentioned is you have run a very successful business and have for a long time. How have you kind of translated, these strategies and your competitive nature and the data into a success in running a really successful franchise of a business, one of the most successful in the state you're in the country for the franchise you're in? How have you really translated that?
Yeah, it's definitely suits my mental capacity very well, because when you run a business, a lot of it is about money in and money out and allocating the money properly. So I love Excel. And again, I'm looking at the numbers, looking at forecasts, looking at past performances. I love putting the numbers into a box. I love seeing where we're going, how we're doing it, how to make the proper adjustments. That really definitely suits my mindset.
Yeah.
And to me, I actually enjoy that part.
Yeah, the numbers and the data of it, right?
Yeah, I really do. I really like looking at the numbers, and if if something's in a negative, I put it in red. I think, man, how am I going to get that into the black? It's just, I really just look at that almost to nauseum. But to me, it does drive success.
Yeah, you've always been hyper focused on details, like like the little details, and I think that even whether it's your physical conditioning or your business, that really translates.
Yeah, I don't know if you went into it in my intro, but I spent a lot of time at UPS, and I was a quality control manager there. And UPS, the king of details. We would have, there'd be like a balanced scorecard. You have 50 different elements, measuring everything down, not to the minute, but to the click, which is even a more finite a measurement tool. And I really got, I think I had it in me to be that person. And then I found UPS, and it really, really enhanced that in me.
Yeah, I did mention that. I know that's, you were there for 27 years. And I draw inspiration from that in a lot of ways, because you come to crossroads in life, and you really made a big bet on yourself to kind of just leave probably one of the most stable jobs in life, and and kind of go into what you were doing now, which is buying the gym and kind of going full force into it. At that time, Rich, were your kids still in high school at that point, or they had moved to college at that point?
At that point, my youngest was in 8th grade, and my oldest was a junior in high school. And the key to that move was I wouldn't have made it. Once again, most important thing in life is having a strong partner who believes in you. Yep. And when I came home, I told Nancy, my wife, I was thinking about leaving UPS after 27 years. She says, I think it's a good idea. I know you can do this. Whatever you put your mind to, you will be successful at. And without her endorsement, I never would have been able to do it.
Because I struggle with this kind of myself personally, did the time you were spending with your children and your family at that point play into your decision?
I'm going to say no, it was my well-being, because what was happening was at this point, I was running an overnight. So what I would do is, I would go to work 10 o'clock at night and come home like at noon. And then I would basically just not sleep and make sure I spent the time with my family and my kids. Now, the quality of it, they could only survive that. Yeah. But I was only sleeping maybe 4 hours, 5 hours a day back on the overnight, because I would not sacrifice that part of it. But obviously it was running me down.
I mean, how were you training during that time period? Because I know you never stopped training. So how were you even training at that point?
I think it was will. It was, again, going back to endorsement number one, or endowment number one, my will was important to me, and I made sure I fit it in. It didn't interfere with the family. I had a lot of good training partners, which also helped. A lot of life success really does come down to who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I agree.
The Portuguese got this great expression. It goes like this: if you hang around bats, you end up sleeping upside down.
That's really good. It's but by the way, just back to what I just said, not only were you training, but correct me if I'm wrong, during that time period you broke some world records.
I broke it was Raw Unity. It was it was the 45 to 49 division at 181. I pulled 655. It's still like the 6th best in that category all time. But at the time, it was the all-time best for that age group in that weight class at Raw Unity number 3 in Tampa.
That's unbelievable. It's just, I mean, listen, that for anybody who's listening to this that doesn't think they have time for things, you kind of make time for the things you want to do. And I think the more you push the limits of that, you changed the lifestyle because it wasn't good for your well-being, but at the same time, you didn't sacrifice anything that you were trying to accomplish in that period of time.
It's all about importance and prioritizing. You're absolutely right. If it's important if it's a strong belief of yours and it's important to you, you will find a way to get it done.
Yep. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. You succeeded in so many things at this point right now. And I know, me and you are very similar in this way, but, we'll talk about stuff we've done, but it doesn't, maybe resonate with us on a daily basis where I've already done this. I don't have to do it again. How do you keep showing up at events? Because this is the thing, even since I've known you, which is got to be almost 10 years at this point now. I've seen you win deadlift, powerlifting competitions. I've seen you win. I saw you decided you were going to go compete in a male, I don't know, a body competition or
a physique show.
Physique show, and you got in ridiculous shape and competed at the highest level. Now I'm seeing you do it with high rocks. I've seen, like, how do you just not show up? Because you could just show up, compete, and be okay with it, right? How do you not show up and you actually go to these events and compete at the highest level?
Everyone's driven by different motivations. And the one thing that I'm going to say right now, which I don't know how many people are motivated by this, I never ever want to be embarrassed. And if I'm not at 100%, I don't want, maybe I could win a deadlift and hit, 585, but if I know I could do 640, I'll be embarrassed.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy. It's like showing up late.
Yep.
To me, it's embarrassing. And I don't know if that's my upbringing because, my parents were immigrants from what was then Czechoslovakia. And I know my old man, it was like, you can never embarrass yourself. Just don't embarrass yourself. Always give 100%. It doesn't matter like what the outcome is, as long as it's your 100%. Because don't embarrass yourself. And I don't know if there's a great way to live or not, but boy, it's really suited me pretty well. I always had that to rub up against. Like even I'm doing a session, sometimes like it's interesting. I'll make a mistake in a session, like a group session, where I said, hey, let's go over to the dumbbells, and we ended up by the bench. I'm almost embarrassed. It bothers me.
You hold yourself to a very high standard.
I guess what that is too. I guess that's what it is. The bar is so high, and the penalty is embarrassment.
Yeah.
And what the interesting thing, Ralph, is, hey, there's 20 people in this group that I'm training. No one cares except for me. Now we went over to the bench.
I know. Nobody cares. No, but even your training sessions, your group classes, I know from people that you're an unbelievable group trainer. But if you don't want to push your limits, don't go into Rich's class. You know what I mean? And it was funny because I was in the gym the other day, and you weren't there, but I was reminiscing with somebody who I've done a lot of workouts with you with, and he's been there in that gym probably for 15 years, and however long he's been there. And we were just like reminiscing about, remember this workout? Remember when Rich did this? And we used to really push it's just like, you make things so memorable that you'll never forget how far you pushed yourself from those workouts.
And you know where that comes from? I just don't show up. Yeah. So if I know like you're coming, like say you just say, hey, Rich, I'm going to stop. Hey, let's train together on Thursday. Okay, I'm on the clock now. Okay, how do I plan a workout that Ralph's going to talk about either to a friend, a colleague of ours, or remember for 10 years? If, like me with the specialty workouts, birthdays, New Year's Day, Christmas Eve, my birthday. I just don't show up. I'm sitting down with, again, paper and pencil, trying to craft something that's going to be memorable. So when everyone shows up, I want them to walk out, wow, this is the reason I came. This is the reason I trained with the human crane. I get it now.
I mean, and to that point, I've trained, I don't know, for the last 17 years, almost every single day. I would say 95% of days I've trained every single day. I don't miss. I don't take long periods of time off. And the most weight I've ever deadlifted, the most weight I've ever benched, the most weight I've ever squatted, the fastest I've ever run on a treadmill have all been with you. And if you kind of equate that to my total number of days training, right, and to the percentage I've spent with you, it's got to be a small percentage, but still, my best days for as far as I go, as far as emptying the tank, have always been with you.
And I appreciate that, because that's what I strive for. Because and to tell you the truth, it doesn't matter who the client is in front of me. If it's Ralph, if it's Makai Becton, if it's Phil Sims, whoever it might be, if it's the person next door to me, I am going to try to get that out of them. My goal, and any person I work with, is not to get to a certain objective level, is to get the best out of the person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always funny too, when I've trained with you in these sessions, and this is, I guess, part of when I've seen somebody try to push you even past what you're trying to push us towards, you really like put your feet down and buckle up and you go to kind of extreme levels. Because I've seen it with with George, I've seen it with Brendan, who we've trained with for years, who was, an all-American powerlifter, and he was 21 years old or 20 years old trying to push you. And it didn't end up so well for him. And you were in your mid-50s at that point. So it's just like when you're pushed, you go to an even more extreme level.
Yeah, I am definitely the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde of training.
Yeah.
That's like me. I forget how Dr. Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde if he drank like a serum or something. But yeah, that is like my serum. That takes me to the point where all of a sudden, sometimes I just can't help it.
Yeah.
A little bit. You've experienced it. It's not,
I know.
It gets dark.
It's a scary limits.
It's dark.
And the problem with it is I know from a personal level, I can't see, hey, Rich, maybe we should be doing this. It's like, all right, I guess we're on this ride together. We're gonna drive off the cliff, and we're gonna end up, it's gonna be a memorable experience, and it's always been a memorable experience. So
yeah, that's the one thing. You're right. We don't drive off the cliff.
No,
it starts to happen. Everybody's looking down to their feet because they don't want to make eye contact. But at the end of it, it's like everyone gets to celebrate in a great workout.
Yeah, I've asked you this one time, and I think I know the answer to this, but what was your toughest workout of all time? And I think it may be the Guinness World Record you set, but maybe tell people what your toughest workout of all time was.
Yeah, so that's correct. And me and Joe Taggart, we spent some really serious long hours. Joe's a personal friend of both of ours, training really hard for that. And then I went to North Carolina. And again, Martin Rooney, one of my earlier mentors, he came up with this idea of let's have the Guinness Book of Record for 1 hour of deadlifting. And he put it on my plate to come up with how are we going to do this? So we got 10 amazing deadlifters from all around, not the country, all around the world. And we're going to put 225 on the bar. I came up with this. Everyone's going to do 10 reps. We're going to do it for an hour straight. I did the math. We got the world record, no problem. So they're starting to warm up, and I'm talking to one of the guys. His name was Chris Ox Mason, who was like an 800-pound deadlifter. I'm like, Chris, how much training did you do for this? Because I spent a lot of time with Joe, going over all this training. And he's like, what's the big deal? It's 2.25. 20 minutes in, the guy crapped out. So there's 10 of us in this rotation, and every 5 minutes, someone's crapping out. Oh. The next thing you know, we're halfway through, and it's Martin, it's me, guy from Finland, and a guy from California left. So the bar is coming around to me. That quick. It's coming around. Instead of me getting, a 2-minute rest, now I'm getting a 40-second rest. Oh. But now, I'll never forget this feeling. I'm looking up at the clock. I go, I got 28 more minutes to go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But this goes back to the embarrassment part of it. This is interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. I told as many people as possible about this. Hey, I'm going out to North Carolina to break this world record. Let's get this book of records. I couldn't come back and face all those people I had told. So I saw your face. I saw this person's face. I saw Joe's face, Phil Sims's face. I saw all these different faces who I told. So the darker I got, the more these faces started popping up. The person who cuts my hair, my sister, obviously Nancy, the kids. I would be embarrassed to come back when they asked me, how'd you do? Oh, I quit. I wouldn't be able to face them. I don't care how hard it got. So at the end, I'll never forget. I was lifting, it's 2.25 from now. At the time, I was probably on either side of 700 of deadlift. I was literally going double overhand with my index finger and my middle finger.
Oh my God.
I was just to make my body as long as possible.
And how many reps was it, Rich?
I ended up getting 330. Me and a guy named Scott Peterson got 330 reps each. I think Martin did 285, and the rest of the group kind of they tailed off. But we ended up getting, I got the plaque and stuff from Guinness. I got it up in the facility. It was a lot of weight, a lot of reps.
I mean, how sore were you the next day after that?
Physically, I was sore. Mentally, I wasn't right for probably about 2 months.
I mean, and I was just going to say that to you because it wasn't a physical thing for the last 20 minutes. You can't tell me that it was. As good a shape you were in, that was mental.
It was all mental. That scarred me. That scarred me.
Just trying to get through that, right? That is unbelievable.
But the strategy of telling as many, if you're going to do something, put it out. People always say, put it out there.
Yeah.
But trust me when I say this, if you put it out to a lot of people, you pretty much have no choice but to get it done.
No, you're right. It's funny because I've seen you miscalculate a couple of things, but you always finish. But you remember this, obviously. Rich held a competition a few years ago that he set up, and I think it was 3 teams, and one was a very, very high level team from West Point cadets, where they were all either powerlifters or huge athletes there. One was like a very, very high level, either elite police officers, and then one was, I think, people from the gym. It was all elite, fitness people. And I remember coming in like 20 minutes into the competition, and there was people laying all over the turf. It's just like, I think you looked at me, you're like, I think I maybe miscalculated how much we should be doing here.
That wasn't one of my finer moments. Yeah, it was actually 5 teams. It was a PBA team,
Okay,
a SWAT team, a team from West Point, which was powerlifters, a team from West Point of a CrossFit team.
that's right.
And then general population team. And yeah, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get all these, elite athletes. I got to make this hard. I got to make this memorable. I went a little too far now. The bodies everywhere.
I want to point out that it wasn't anything that you wouldn't have done yourself.
That is correct. Right.
So you did make it very hard, but you would think that these people, if they walked into the gym and saw you, and that's what's great about you, they walked into the gym and saw you, it's like, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? But that's necessarily the case all the time.
Yeah, sometimes the math could be a little fuzzy.
I could talk to you for hours, but I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this because I think it's an important way to it's important, something I've talked to you about for years, and you've always given me great insight on it. And your daughters are older now, I believe, with 26 and 29, or a little older than that?
31, 28.
Okay. Fatherhood and family is always something that's been very important to you. And man, my kids are getting old too quick. They're 10 and 8, but it's just happening way too fast. And I'm trying to slow it down, and it's not slowing down. It's getting faster. How have you managed to keep such a good family bond and culture, and that not only are you still very well connected to your daughters, but you are friends with them at this point in life? You've become like somebody you can have a conversation with, and it's almost like your relationship has changed in an even better way at this point. And how do you feel like you've managed to keep that together?
Yeah, it really goes back to how me and Nancy conducted our lives in front of them. We never, and again, I'm not going to say, I'm this, amazing, great person, and I got all the answers, but, we never fought in front of the kids. We never argued in front of the kids, and the kids watch every single thing you do, and they learn by it. They live by it. And I didn't really realize that until they were adults. And one day, Samantha, my youngest, and myself were walking her dog, and she goes, I really learned a lot by watching you and Mom. Everything you guys did really became like my blueprint to my success as an adult. So when you're in front of your children, just never forget this. They watch every single thing you do. And you can't say, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah.
So, I think we Nancy really is a great mother, a great role model for both our daughters. And, I provided a little bit of the backdrop to all that, but we really lived our lives in a way that we were proud of, our daughters could basically emulate.
That's a great answer. And if I can leave the world with something from this podcast with you, I think that what I would say to you is, more people need to hear this story. More people need to hear how you're doing it and how you've done it. And I'm going to keep pushing you to kind of put your story out there a little bit more, and you do it. But I think it's even more important to do it even further, because it's been such an additive to my life since I've known you. And I just think that it could help so many people.
Well, I'm humbled by what you just said. And again, what all you just did for me is you've given me more motivation to keep the bar set high. Because, I respect you, and our relationship, I know what I would do without it. And
I appreciate that.
I am very fortunate to have someone like you in my life. And I think that's what people need to do. Find people that add to who they are, not try to take away from who they are.
Yeah, 100%. So Disruptors Network podcast and community. I leave you with this, and I think that there's so many nuggets in this that you should have written down. But Rich, thanks so much for being on.
Ralph, appreciated it as always, and hope to see you soon at the facility for another great workout, another memorable one.
Yeah, I need it too. So I'm going to be there sooner than later.